After waiting an agonizing 10 days, we not only got the third episode of IT Welcome to Derry, but we also got the first real glimpse of Pennywise in the series. Buckle up because we have a lot to get through, from General Shaw's secret connection to Pennywise, to Hallorann's psychic abilities getting hijacked, to the creepy revelation the new Losers Club stumbles upon. Episode 3 was a roller coaster ride filled with thrills and chills. Stay tuned as I break down and explain that skin-crawling ending of Episode 3. But first, welcome to Screen Crave, where I dive into the films and television series that I love, or that I'm currently watching. Please like and subscribe to help out the channel, and let me know in the comments below what you thought about the episode. Now let's dive in. Fair warning, spoilers ahead. The episode begins with a flashback to 1908, where we meet a young boy by the name of Francis as he wanders all throughout the grounds of a travelling carnival. Remember, 1908 is the time period that will be explored in season 3 of the series, and is a previous feeding cycle of Pennywise in Derry. This carnival is the beginning of Pennywise's trap for Francis, as his exploration of the different attractions lead him to come face to face with the Skeleton Man, someone who is nothing but skin and bones and is missing one of his eyes. Terrified out of his mind, and who could blame him, Francis runs out of the tent and into his father, who attempts to cheer up his son by gifting him a slingshot he procured at the carnival. On the way home, their car shuts down just steps away from a stand where the native children of Derry are selling jarred water. Francis's father gives him a few cents. However, this wasn't enough, so a young girl, who we later find out to be Rose, inquires about the slingshot in his pocket. Later in the episode, it is revealed that this simple exchange between the two led to a summer of uninhibited fun and exploration. However, this joyous period of time was short-lived due to the uninvited presence of Pennywise, who stalks Francis in the woods like a predator toying with its prey. I found this scene to be particularly disturbing, as I have my own fears around entering the woods and seeing something I shouldn't. Francis notices the Skeleton Man, which confirms that Pennywise's presence was there the day he visited the travelling carnival, and has taken on the form of what Francis reacted to back then. It begins chasing Francis, progressively becoming more and more grotesque in appearance. And as it is about to claim Francis's life, Rose uses the slingshot to wound it, and allows Francis a window of opportunity to escape from its clutches. We will come back to the importance of this scene in just a bit, so keep that in mind. Having stunned the Skeleton Man, Francis and Rose run out of the woods just in the nick of time, and successfully escape, becoming its next victims. Francis, on the edge of losing his sanity, is consoled by Rose, who says that whatever it is cannot get them now that they're out of the woods. My guess is that this has to do with Rose and the other native children's understanding of what land and areas are protected that it is not allowed to travel. In 1962, General Shaw initiates the military's next phase of exploration. During this discussion, he states a few details I found to be interesting, such as his knowledge that whatever they're looking for goes back at least 300 years, and that he is aware that there are cycles the entity adheres to. When reappearing in Derry, Shaw also notes that Dick Hallorann's psychic abilities have been proven, but there is only so much he is able to accomplish from the base. Staring and pointing at maps, he orders Hanlon and Russo to team up with Dick and explore their next dig site location by aircraft. Shaw gives Dick a cigar box with an item that has been marked by the entity, and, surprise surprise, it is the slingshot we saw from 1908 used by Rose to save Francis from the entity. General Shaw is the boy from the flashback, and it becomes clear that his personal encounter with Pennywise is the fuel motivating his mission to find the entity once again. The slingshot proves to be useful for a brief moment in time, as it allows Hallorann to tap into its energy and guide Hanlon and Russo in the air as they head east. However, this energetic connection leads Hallorann into an illusion crafted by Pennywise that pulls him into a cistern within the sewer system of Derry, which mirrors the location of the final battle between the Losers Club and Pennywise in the original films. In this vision, Dick sees a carnival cart wedged into a pile of toys, which unveils the glowing yellow eyes of Pennywise. Dick, sensing immense danger, hesitantly steps back and notices that the floating objects and bodies in the air mimic memories from his past, including the floating body of his grandmother. This clues him off to what is really happening within the entity's illusion, that his mind has been hijacked by it. As Hallorann attempts to open the vaulted door of the cistern, we cut back to the real world where he is unknowingly opening the back hatch of the aircraft, just moments away from plummeting to his death. Hanlon steps in at the last second and saves Hallorann, which allows him to break the psychic connection with Pennywise and realise that he is now back in the real world. When questioned by General Shaw later in the episode, Hallorann makes a note that whatever it is cold, and he gets the sense that they weren't supposed to see it. If they keep going down the path that they are on, he believes that it will soon start to come after them because of the attention they are drawing to themselves by engaging with it. Meanwhile, the real targets for this cycle of Pennywise's reappearance are slowly but surely coming together to face it head on. At Juniper Hill, Lily discusses her guilt over being tricked by the sheriff and getting Ronnie's father arrested due to her testimony with one of the nurses she became close to during her time at the institution. The nurse shares an observation that she has learned over time that people cannot believe what they aren't able to see with their own eyes. I just have to say, I love this scene because even Lily's own mother treats her like she's crazy, and I can only imagine how isolating an experience that is for her. The nurse's words spark an important idea in Lily's mind as she attempts to reconcile with Ronnie, who has now become a social pariah at school, and her locker is vandalised as a result with the saying, "Hatchet Hank is going to fry." Lily expresses her sadness and guilt to Ronnie and admits her biggest fear was being sent back to Juniper Hill, and she even questioned what they went through because of it. Now that she saw her father in the grocery store, had a public reaction, and was sent back anyway, she's willing to come out with the truth, but also recognises that no one will believe her due to recent events. This was something I called out in my previous video. I believe this will be Pennywise's biggest mistake, because now it pushed Lily and Ronnie over the edge, and now they have nothing to lose in coming after it. Lily reiterates what the nurse from her institution said, that people cannot believe what they don't see with their own eyes, so why not get proof? She shares with Ronnie that she has a camera they can use in order to get the evidence needed to free her father from jail. While it initially intrigues Ronnie, she makes a point that even if they develop the film, any photo lab they go to will keep the images without sending them back copies due to the nature of the photographs. This is when Ronnie gets the idea to enlist the help of Will, who, in the previous episode, discussed his extensive knowledge of chemicals, which she knows would come in handy in developing the camera roll photos when the time comes. However, Will and Richie are skeptical after Ronnie reveals the reason for why they need his help, but Richie points out that Will is willing to help Ronnie because he's sweet on her. Despite how crazy and out of this world the story may sound, Richie knows Will would do just about anything for love in the same way he does. This scene made me think that Marge will get pulled into the new Losers Club by the next episode, and that something tragic will happen between either Will and Ronnie or Richie and Marge because Richie makes a joke about Romeo and Juliet. After what we witnessed in the first episode, I'm bracing myself by not getting too attached to anyone in the group. Later, Lily brings Ronnie, Will and Richie to the place she used to hang out with Susie, Phil and Teddy. They discuss their options for tracking down and finding whatever entity is targeting them and acquiring proof of its existence. Richie interjects that this entity sounds a lot like the Orisha from his culture, and he mentions how his uncle is a priest who uses rituals to summon entities to go after those that do not settle their debts with him. This piques the interest of everyone in the group, and they ask if any of that knowledge about the ritual was passed down to him, as this might be their chance to meet face to face with it. These three storylines converge into the final act of this episode. Rose attends a meeting with the native people of Derry to discuss the military's involvement with dig sites near their land, to which she suggests they send a cease and desist in order to handle matters the proper way. Side note, although it isn't mentioned directly in the episode, the featurette at the end mentioned Rose is a part of the Children of Maturin. Remember, Maturin is the counterpart to the entity known as It, so we got to see Maturin's presence teased very subtly in the first episode, and now we might get to see the history of how the native people of Derry have dealt with Pennywise for hundreds of years. The cease and desist leads to General Shaw stopping by Rose's shop, and it is as if the two of them are pulled back in time as they reconnect after 50 years of being apart. Francis admits that he initially forgot everything about that summer, including all of his memories of the time he spent with Rose, until he stepped foot back in Derry. But she's not surprised or offended by this revelation. In a flashback, it is revealed that when Francis and his family were set to move due to his father's relocation orders, Rose warned him that Derry has a way of making people forget things even if they don't intend to. This was a phenomenon explored in the original films, but is further shown through the perspective of the characters of this series in order to highlight how the entity is able to obscure itself from public attention outside the bounds of Derry. Over in the Hanlon's neck of the woods, Hallorann visits their family for dinner at their home. Hallorann, Leroy, and Charlotte discuss their experiences in Derry. Charlotte expresses her interest in joining social movements due to her inability to get a job at the school, despite her being more than qualified, but that this would jeopardize Leroy's ability to climb up the ladder in the military. In my previous video, I made the assumption that Charlotte and Leroy would be pulled into Pennywise's tangled web, but that they would have dueling ideologies on how to handle the situation. Charlotte's North Star is doing what is right and revealing the truth, while Leroy would rather sweep things under the rug and not rock the boat in order to get ahead. We'll see how this plays out in the next few episodes. As Charlotte goes to prepare dessert, Hallorann mentions that Leroy's son isn't home, which Leroy assures him he will meet Will sometime soon. Moments later, they move out to the porch to drink some beer, but Leroy uses this moment to question Hallorann about the abilities he suspects he has. Leroy isn't closed off to the possibility that these abilities are real, because in Louisiana, everyone knew someone who knew someone that could do or know things no one else had the ability to do or know. He goes on to say he knows Hallorann was at the scene of his assault as one of the assailants, because the feeling he got from Hallorann poking around in his mind when bringing up his son was the same feeling he had when staring down one of the masked assailants. Hallorann comes clean and admits he was there that night, but that he didn't participate in physically harming him. A big part of why he refused to do anything more was because he could sense within Leroy a lack of fear. Instead of cowering in the face of death, Leroy was analysing and collecting information. We learned this is because of Hanlon's damaged amygdala from his time stationed in Korea. Someone without fear is one type of person Hallorann never wants to mess with, and ensures him that he'd rather have Leroy with him versus being against him. Speaking of Leroy's son, Will joins Richie, Ronnie and Lily in a ritual at the town cemetery in order to draw out the entity thereafter. Richie orchestrates everything, but it becomes clear that even he can't follow his own rules and slips up by changing his source of information from his uncle to cousin Ronnie calls him out for lying to all of them, to which he admits to Will that it's hard enough to make friends as it is, and he went along with everything so they could all become close. I couldn't be too mad at him. I think we've all been there before when we were younger. As Ronnie and Lily ride off toward the exit, with Will and Richie a few paces behind them, they all begin to feel a weird shift as the exit gets further and further away despite how far they've been pedaling. Soon after, they all experience a group illusion by Pennywise, and the ground beneath them begins to crumble. This leads to a sequence of them being chased by the ectoplasmic version of Susie, Phil, and Teddy, and they all attempt to use the camera to snap pictures during this chaos. Unfortunately, the camera kept getting stuck on trees or dropped on the ground, which led to a nail-biting hot potato sequence with capturing evidence. Will is unable to pedal fast enough to avoid the crumbling ground underneath, and lands in a pit that is actually a dilapidated crypt built into the side of one of the hills in the cemetery. Richie drops the camera at Will's feet, and as Will is about to leave, he hears a noise coming from the crypt, so he decides to investigate it. This leads to Pennywise making an appearance, or more accurately, his hand, to which Will snaps a photo of in the pitch-black darkness of the crypt. I thought for sure this was when we get another casualty in the series, but like Richie, Ronnie and Lily, who are worried that he might not have made it out alive, they are relieved to see that he survived along with the camera. All four of them break into the school to use the photography chemicals and equipment in the photo lab, and they begin developing the photos they took while at the cemetery. They are delighted when the deceased Susie, Teddy and Phil appear within the images, because now they have proof something strange is going on. But shortly after, they are dumbfounded when they see a mysterious entity in the photo Will took in the crypt. They're unsure what it is, but Will is able to identify that it is a clown. We finally get the first appearance of Pennywise, albeit a very blurry one. Going into the third episode of the series, I was a bit concerned about what the pacing would be like, especially because it is a horror series with a ton of lore and intersecting storylines that could affect the momentum of the horror elements of the story. But the creative team behind the show blew my expectations out of the water again, and I believe it is because not only does the series deliver on the horror elements, but it also functions as a riveting drama at times. In particular, the structure of how General Shaw's past was revealed this episode, along with his personal relationship to Rose, made for a compelling watch. This, juxtaposed with the frightening visuals and tense atmosphere, injects the show with magic that is hard to look away from. That's the end of this video, but let me know what you think about the episode in the comments section below. Don't forget to subscribe, and I'll see you next time.